Some say the trouble's in the Pentagon. Some say the trouble's in the street.
Hello, and welcome to Human Rights Here Now, a program by the Alliance for Human Rights in Santa Cruz County. The Alliance envisions our county as a harmonious and egalitarian multicultural society in which people are well informed about human rights as defined in U.S. and international law. My name is Sonya, and I'm in this segment. We'll be talking about an important human right, the right to be free from religion and superstition. In this episode, we'll look at how this freedom is abridged here in the United States. We'll look at the history of religious freedom, the current state in the U.S. today, and also discuss what you can do about it. Please join us as we discuss this important topic. Joining me is Howard Burman, a Santa Cruz resident who, along with me and many others, is interested in seeing this type of persecution eliminated around the world, and particularly in our supposedly secular nation. Welcome, Howard.
Thank you.
In the United States, we associate freedom of religion with the First Amendment to the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Our Constitution is a secularist document because of what it says and because what it does not say. The first of the explicit secularist provisions is Article 6, Section 3, which states that federal electives and appointed officials, quote, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. No religious test. This provision, much less familiar to the public today than the First Amendment, was especially meaningful and especially sweeping in view of the fact that the necessity of religious tests and religious oaths for office holders had been taken for granted by nearly all of the governments of the American states, not to mention those in the rest of the world, at the time of the Constitution was written. The addition of the word affirmation is significant because it meant that the framers did not intend to compel office holders to take a religious oath on the Bible. The intent could not have been clearer to those who wanted only religious men, specifically. Protestant believers and others to hold any kind of an office. As one North Carolina minister put it during the state's debate on the ratification of the Constitution, the abolition of religious tests for office holders amounts to an invitation for Jews and pagans of every kind to come among us, indeed. The second explicit secularist constitutional provision is, of course, the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights, ratified in 1791. A very important part of the First Amendment is the omission of one word, God, which played an even more important role in the construction of a secularist foundation for the new government. The Constitution's silence on the deity broke not only what was culturally and historically distant precedents, but with proximate and recent American presidents as well. Most notably, the 1781 Articles of Confederation, which acknowledges the beneficence of the great governor of the world. With its refusal to invoke any form of divine sanction, even a vague deitistic providence, the Constitution clearly intended to separate religion from government.
Originally, the First Amendment applied only to the federal government, and some states continued official state religions after ratification. Massachusetts, for example, was officially Congregationalist until the 1830s. The first great Supreme Court freedom of religion case was decided in the middle of World War II in West Virginia versus Barnett. In one of the court's most frequently quoted passages, it said, quote, "If there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion, or force citizens to confess by word or act their faith therein." In 1947, the U.S. Supreme Court decision, Everson versus Board of Education, invoked the Establishment Clause and made it apply to the states. In the majority decision, Justice Hugo Black wrote, quote, "The Establishment of Religion Clause of the First Amendment means at least this. Neither a state nor the federal government can set up a church. Neither can pass laws which aid one religion, aid all religions, or prefer one religion over another. Neither can force nor influence a person to go to or remain away from church against his will, or force him to profess a belief or disbelief in any religion. No person can be punished for entertaining or professing religious beliefs or disbeliefs, for church attendance or non-attendance. No tax in any amount, large or small, can be levied to support any religious activities or institutions, whatever they may be called or whatever form they may adopt to teach or practice religion. Neither a state nor the federal government can openly or secretly participate in the affairs of any religious organizations or groups, and vice versa." In the words of Jefferson, the clause against establishment of religion by law was intended to erect a wall of separation between church and state, unquote. Beginning with the 1947 Everson decision, which permitted, I think rather ironically, New Jersey school boards to pay for transportation of children to parochial schools, the court has used various tests to determine when the wall of separation has been breached. This decision laid down the test that establishment existed when aid was given to religion, but that the transportation was justifiable because the benefit to the children was more important. I believe the states allowing vouchers for private schools, many of them religious, rely on this SCOTUS precedent.
In Lemon versus Kurtzman, 1971, the court declared that an action was not establishment if, 1, the statute or practice has a secular purpose, 2, its principal or primary effect neither advances nor inhibits religion, and 3, it does not foster an excessive government entanglement with religion. This so-called Lemon test has been criticized by justices and legal scholars, but it remains the predominant precedent by which the court enforces the Establishment Clause. Accommodationists often quote Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas, quote, "We are a religious people whose institution presupposes a supreme being." This group holds that the Lemon test should be applied selectively. For many, the Establishment Clause only prevents states from establishing a state church. Accommodationists claim the Establishment Clause does not prohibit public acknowledgement of God, and that it does not prevent states and municipal governments from having policies supporting general religious beliefs as long as they don't favor a particular sect. Another important Supreme Court case affecting freedom of religion and free speech, civil rights, was argued and won by the American Civil Liberties Union. In West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett, 1943, the ACLU represented members of Jehovah's Witnesses against the West Virginia Board of Education. The case involved public school children forced to recite the Pledge of Allegiance or be expelled, their parents fined and even jailed. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the ACLU and the Jehovah's Witnesses. In references to its work in the area of freedom of religion, the ACLU's website page titled Religion and Belief states, quote, "The goal of the ACLU's work on freedom of religion and belief is to guarantee that all are free to follow and practice their faith or no faith at all without government influence or interference."
What's currently happening in the fight to restore the wall of separation between government and religion in the country? Much by many organizations, in addition to the ACLU. Currently, the Supreme Court is hearing the case of Town of Greece versus Galloway on the question of government prayer. This will revisit the case of Marsh versus Chambers of 1983. In that case, the Supreme Court upheld prayer before legislative sessions based on tradition. The court claimed the prayers in Marsh, although given for 16 years by the same Presbyterian minister who was paid by the municipality for this service, and although they often included Christian-specific content, are permissible and not an infringement of the Establishment Clause, because they're simply a tolerable acknowledgement of beliefs widely held among the people of this country, so long as the selecting of those who give the prayers isn't from an impermissible motive, and so long as the prayer period isn't used to proselytize or advance anyone or to disparage any other faith or belief. Although I'm highly interested in this case and hope with bated breath that SCOTUS overturns its earlier decision of Marsh versus Chambers and decides in favor of Galloway, I have to say that government prayer, religion in the public square, think Ten Commandments, monuments, and courthouses, and in God we trust on our currency, and enshrined as the national motto, and under God and the Pledge of Allegiance, while I regard them as illegal under the First Amendment's Establishment Clause, they don't concern me nearly as much as religious privilege that kills children. This I absolutely view as deprivation of civil liberties and the right to life. And I think, moreover, it's relevant to the topic of the rights of atheists to freedom from religion, for we're all born as atheists. We learn to believe in various religions from our parents and the predominant religious culture they raise us in. I find it absolutely unconscionable that in the 21st century, some parents allow their minor children to suffer and even die from preventable, curable diseases because of their religious beliefs. I'm talking about faith healers who deny their minor children pain mitigating and life-saving medical assistance. Here's a recent story of faith healing believers in Oregon who've allowed their children to die rather than receive modern medical treatment. At least two parents, Jeff and Marcy Beagley, members of the faith healing Followers of Christ, went to jail in 2010 for the death of their 16-year-old son in 2008. They were convicted of negligent homicide. And here's a website with more information about faith healing sex. In 1998, pediatricians Seth Asser and Rita Swan published an article in the medical journal Pediatrics titled "Child Fatalities from Religion-Motivated Medical Neglect." Since then, so-called religious shield laws have been falling, but some remain, like in Idaho. In the same vein, states that allow parents not to immunize their children because of their religious beliefs also permit parents to abuse their atheist-born children and diminish the public health of all of us. This sort of nonsense caused an outbreak of measles in Texas that stemmed from a church pastor advising parishioners against vaccinations, and an epidemic of whooping cough across the nation. So I have a real problem with this, Howard. Maybe you've discerned that from my tone of voice here, but I really have a problem with people who allow their kids to die.
It is very simply child abuse.
It is. But then I think forcing a religion on children when we're all born atheists is mental child abuse.
It is completely child abuse. It's something that Dawkins has argued for a long time. Other people have picked up on it lately. I mean, the fact is, you have to be indoctrinated into a religion to honestly believe that religion. You don't just sit out in the field someday and go, oh, all of a sudden,
right.
I see the light, although some people have claimed that. It comes from indoctrination, and that is a form of child abuse, but you're not allowing the child to make the decision.
That's right. And you're certainly infringing on a child's civil liberties by not giving them medical treatment.
Absolutely.
When we have it, they're available.
Here are some other notable ways the religious right, driven by their efforts to impose their beliefs on the rest of us, atheists and religious alike, are chiseling away at the wall of separation. Anti-abortion laws, recently passed, such as the notorious 20-week ban in Texas. In the same vein, companies attempting to deny women access to birth control under the Affordable Care Act, supposedly in the name of religious freedom. The Hobby Lobby case is currently before the Supreme Court. States implementing school voucher programs that give state tax money to families so they can send their kids to private schools rather than public schools. Many of these private schools are religious and teach nonsense, creationism and intelligent design, and are unsurprisingly poor performing when students' knowledge is tested. The Louisiana Supreme Court, however, did rule that Governor Jindal's school voucher program is unconstitutional. The title of this story about Indiana's school voucher program says it all. Data show voucher students often opt for schools no better than public ones. And here's this story, whose title also says it all. Hundreds of voucher schools teach creationism in science classes. This is also a denial of civil rights to atheists, for I insist that we are all born atheists and that those who become religious have it instilled in them through indoctrination, and having a population where nearly half believe the creation story of Genesis literally has already made the U.S. a laughingstock among developed nations in the modern world. This is why we continue to lag behind nations in science. Not content to use everybody's tax dollars to send kids to private religious voucher schools to learn creationism and intelligent design, the religious right also continues its efforts to teach intelligent design in public science curricula. Fortunately, the Texas State Board of Education approved its public science textbooks as approved by leading science educators with evolution and climate science material intact. The tax-exempt status religious institutions enjoy without accountability is ridiculous. Non-religious charities must file 990 forms that make their fund expenditures highly transparent. They are not allowed to engage in political activity. Yet religious organizations are also not allowed to engage in political activities, but in recent elections they have done exactly that, and they have not lost their tax-exempt status. The Freedom from Religious Foundation is currently suing the IRS to make it investigate various religious organizations, mostly Christian churches, whose leaders exhorted congregants to vote for particular candidates and certain measures. Let's watch the video, Tax Dollar.
You can almost call it a protected racket. And I'm talking about televangelists, that's right. The ones who rake in billions of dollars a year on donations because they are nonprofit ministries. Don't even have to declare any of this stuff.
I'm not going to be going to heaven and be broke when I get there.
Section 107 of the Internal Revenue Code allows, quote, ministers of the gospel, end quote, to exclude some or all of their ministerial income designated by their church or church-related employer as a housing allowance from income for federal income tax purposes. Again, the FFRF is working to end this benefit, which a minister of the gospel gets for life. Judge Barbara Crabb recently ruled in FFRF's favor.
I'm waiting with bated breath to see whether this gets appealed to the Supreme Court and what will happen to it there. The Supreme Court fumbled, I think, when it said Michael Newdow didn't have standing and thus dismissed his challenge of Under God and the Pledge of Allegiance. It fumbled yet again when Newdow returned with standing on behalf of parents who don't want their kids coerced into pledge recitation. He's also trying to remove In God We Trust from our currency. That suit was also dismissed. So Newdow's 0 for 3, I think, on his efforts to get all of these laws, including the history of Under God and In God We Trust, out of the way. We'd also like to end the National Day of Prayer in May and the President's endorsement of the National Day of Prayer, but that's not going anywhere either. He's also tried to get the president from saying, "So help me God," at the end of his oath of office. But
I was in the courtroom. when he was in the San Francisco court, when he made his arguments. And there was a lot of support for him. And I think a lot of people think that he's onto something, although albeit not everyone.
Right. Well, Judge Barbara Crabb did rule in favor of FFRF when they challenged the National Day of Prayer, but that was also overturned by the Supreme Court in 2011. We could keep going here with more recitation of this. I would love to see the president and other government officials just simply stop swearing, "So help me God," but that's up to them. The phrase is not in the Constitution. Congress refused this past summer to appoint humanist chaplains for non-religious service members. In the same vein,
well, you know, rampant proselytizing of Christianity in the armed forces continues, as does discrimination against non-religious service members. And one of my favorites, the singing of God Bless America at Major League Baseball games, the permitting of rampant displays of religiosity in professional sports. The National Football League did the right thing in implementing rules against writing messages in eye-black. It and the MLB and FIFA, the soccer group, and every other professional sport where this is a problem, should just make it a rule to stop players from signaling to their sky god in thanksgiving for scoring, although they claim that's not what they're doing. I'm in complete agreement with Eric Samdahl on his desire to get rid of God Bless America at Major League games. It has no place in those games. I'd like to see all professional sports organizations ban all religious gesturing and commentary when wearing professional sports uniforms and while playing the game. And I know some professional sports athletes wait until the cameras are on. They wait until they come out on the field when they know people are visible,
right,
to kneel down and do their prayers instead of perhaps doing them
right,
in the clubhouse.
Right. Well, obviously this is a decision that the sports organizations have to make. It's not something that we would expect the federal government to step in and decide. Right. And this just brings us back down to a more of a cultural situation and discussion, because we hit some really, we started out with deaths of children because of religious parents who don't allow them to receive medical treatment because of their religious beliefs. But I'm annoyed as well by cultural things like this that infuse us with a theocratic-like atmosphere, if you will, in our culture.
But here's what's behind all of it. The statements you hear constantly: America is a Christian nation.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, it is not a Christian
No.
nation. It is a nation where perhaps the majority of the people are Christians. That does not make it a Christian nation.
Right.
It's a non-sectarian nation, and all these arguments, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to have these laws in place because we're a Christian nation, they just don't hold any water.
That's right. We were founded as a secular nation.
Absolutely, we were.
And yeah, so I tire of seeing sports coaches wearing big crosses,
Right. Okay.
the eye black of Tim Tebow, John 3:16,
Right.
the gesturing, doing the cross, pointing to the sky. God bless America, seventh inning stretch. I'm tired of all of it. I would love to see it go away, but it takes finally getting people to come around and.
Well, I think what really needs to happen is there needs to be an education. There needs to be things out there that says we are not a Christian nation.
Right.
So many people think, oh, Madison said this, he led a prayer in the Constitutional Committee. He did not.
Right.
People say, well, George Washington called for a prayer. He did not.
Right.
But these people believe these things
Right.
because they hear it in church or they hear it from other sources.
Sure.
It just isn't so.
Right. Yeah, and well, we touched on education and the imposition of creationism and intelligent design in science curricula. The same sort of thing was going on in Texas, surprise, where they were trying to take out information about Jefferson
Right.
and the Wall of Separation.
Right.
We have revisionist history actively going on that is against this kind of education.
Absolutely.
So I think, yes, education is absolutely necessary. People need to know the truth about the founding of our country and the writing of the Constitution. For heaven's sakes, read the Constitution. How many of us have ever actually read through the document and seen what these things mean and read what it actually says? Yeah. One would think that those sworn into the highest court in the land to uphold that document would not have fumbled as much as I think they have.
You would think.
With various different court cases.
Yeah.
And
you were talking about the Pledge of Allegiance too, and one
right.
nation under God. You got to remember, those came in the 50s.
Right.
Our parents didn't know them.
Right. McCarthyism.
McCarthyism.
Yes. That was 52 and 54, I think.
Right.
And anyhow, yes. We've worked our way through a list of grievous ways the religious in this country have succeeded and are still succeeding in imposing their religious viewpoint on all of us via the law, in contradiction to the Constitution's First Amendment Establishment Clause, thereby breaching Thomas Jefferson's wall of separation between government and religion. But while we dwell on the horrors of faith-healing parents who kill their children through medical neglect because of their religion, we've tried to bring us from horror at this most grievous wrong in the name of religion to mildly annoying and irksome, the religious gesturing and evangelizing of professional athletes on national and international television while playing the game and in uniform. And certainly this latter is not an example of government imposing religion. We list it as an example of the continuing influence of religion in our culture. We'll leave you with that thought and this list of organizations working to restore Jefferson's wall of separation. Thank you.
Some say the trouble's in the Pentagon. Some say the trouble's in the street. Some say the president's a paragon. Where's the trouble at the bottom? Some say the trouble's the anatomy. Some say the trouble's in the head. Some say the trouble's the psychology. Where's the trouble at the bottom? Trouble, trouble, where's the trouble? Oh mama, where's the trouble? Got a headache, seeing double. Where's the trouble at the bottom? Trouble, trouble, where's the trouble? Oh mama, where's the trouble? Got a headache, seeing double. Where's the trouble at the bottom? Some say the trouble's with the principal. Some say the trouble's with the kids. Some say the trouble's the curriculum. Where's the trouble at the bottom? Some say the trouble's in the textbook. Some say the trouble's in the class. Overall, the school board fugging up. Where's the trouble at the bottom? Trouble, trouble, where's the trouble? Oh mama, where's the trouble? Got a headache, seeing double. Where's the trouble at the bottom? Trouble, trouble, where's the trouble? Oh mama, where's the trouble? Got a headache, seeing double. Where's the trouble at the bottom? Some say the trouble's in the family. Some say the trouble's on the job. I say whatever the